Insurance companies don't stay in business and prosper by being stupid. If Congress were to enact a law eliminating pre-existing condition exclusions, what might be expected? Well, let's say that I am a salesman for an insurance company and you demand that I write you an insurance policy for your house that has already gone up in flames. I send out an appraiser to your house to get an estimate of how much money it would take to make you whole. Let's say it takes $500,000. Guess how much the insurance carrier is going to charge you for the policy? If you said somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000, you'd be right. So you might argue, well, forcing fire and auto insurance companies to sell policies to cover a pre-existing fire or auto accident is bizarre and stupid, but it's different with health insurance. Yes, health insurance is different from fire and auto insurance, but the insurance principle remains the same. If health insurance companies cannot refuse to insure someone whom they know will have huge medical bills, their only alternative will be to charge exorbitant premiums. But I suspect, and what I've just read comes directly from my next guest, there is a method to the government's madness. If it can drive insurance company premiums off the charts, it can drive insurance companies out of business, and that will leave itself, the government, as the insurer of last resort. Now, that's clear, concise, and to the point, and written by my next guest, Professor Walter Williams, professor of economics at George Mason University. Professor Williams is a staunch defender of the free market, and his unique ability to explain free market principles makes him one of the most sought-after and respected defenders of freedom in academia today. Professor Williams, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Good afternoon, Judge.
So I read your piece, which I have just summarized over the Christmas holidays, and I thought, there he is again, taking a very, very complex principle, how insurance companies decide who to insure and how they can make a profit, and explaining it in a way that everybody can understand it. Do you agree with me that the government wants private insurers to raise the rates through the roof so they'll go out of business, leaving us at the tender mercies of the people that run the post office?
That is absolutely right. And I think an intermediate step would be is that if insurance companies are required to insure people with pre-existing health conditions that might turn out to be very costly for the insurance company, well, the insurance company is going to charge these people higher rates. And so these people will start raising hell with Congress about their high insurance premiums.
Right.
And then Congress is going to come in and try to have price controls to regulate the insurance industry. And then after they say, okay, you can only charge people such and such, well, then insurance companies may say, well, look, we're not going to insure this, we're not going to insure that. And so then Congress is going to step in and tell them what they can insure and what they cannot insure.
And so either we will have congressional rationing or the Congress will own an insurance company. Because, you know, Congress likes to think it can do whatever it wants. I mean, Thomas More is quoted as saying in his trial for treason, some men say the earth is round and some men say it's flat. But if it's round, can a command of the parliament flatten it? And if it's round and if it's flat, can the king make it round? I mean, there are certain things that the government can't do. The government can't squeeze these insurance companies on one end by saying you have to insure everybody that knocks on your door, and squeeze them at the other end by saying you can only charge a certain amount and expect them to pay the bills.
So that is absolutely right. And the bottom line is that somebody is going to pay the bill. That is, there's no such thing as a free lunch, as my colleague, my late colleague Milton Friedman used to say. Somebody has to pay for it, and will pay for it in terms of a lower standard of living and higher taxes for all Americans. But here's the question that I would like to ask you, since you're a legal scholar. Now, Congress is they're talking about mandating that people buy health insurance. Now, I want to know, where in the United States Constitution does Congress have the authority to force me to enter into a contract with somebody?
Absolutely nowhere, Professor Williams. You and I are in full agreement on that. The very question that you put to me, worded exactly as you did. I'm kind of flattered because you chose the same words I did. I put to Congressman James Clyburn, the number 3 ranking Democrat in the House, Democrat from South Carolina. And he said to me, as if I had two heads, Judge, most of what we do down here, referring to Washington, is not authorized by the Constitution. And then later, I'm paraphrasing him fairly, basically said, unless it's expressly prohibited in the Constitution, if we think the people want it, we'll do it. They took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not to uphold what they think people want them to do.
And actually, that's looking at the Constitution the other way. That is, the Constitution talks about enumerated powers. It gives Congress enumerated powers. That is, if those powers are not enumerated in the Constitution, then Congress cannot do it.
His argument is the opposite of that, and it is the opposite of 230 years of jurisprudence, which is we can do something unless it's expressly prohibited. I guess there's a hole in his copy of the Constitution where the 9th Amendment and the 10th Amendments are, which basically say what you just said. The powers are enumerated, and if we didn't enumerate them and give them to the Congress, we retained them to the people and to the states.
And you know, and one of the tragic things that is happening in our country is the kind of trust that the American people have in the United States Congress, and it's exactly opposite of what the founders of our great nation had. They had utter fear of the Congress. Right. And if you look at the language of the Constitution, look at the Bill of Rights. It says Congress cannot infringe. Congress shall not prohibit. Congress shall not disparage. Now, if the founders did not think that Congress was devious like this, why in the world would they put that kind of language there?
The founders had a fear of central government, and it was a real fear. They had just kicked out a king and a parliament 3,000 miles away. The last thing they wanted was a homegrown government right here that would do the same thing to them that the king and the parliament had just done to them. It is far more authoritarian today than anything George III and the parliament ever dreamed of in their wildest imaginings.
You're absolutely right. And if you look at it, and you look how timid the American people have come, our founders went to war with the mightiest nation on the face of the earth because they did not want to work for King George to pay taxes for 2 weeks out of the year. They did not want to work from January 1st of 19 to January 15th. Now, here we are, you and me, you and I, we are working going on 5 months out of the year, and we do not have the rights to decide how the fruits of our labor will be used. Some turkeys and some jackasses in Washington make that decision for us.
Professor Williams, I love you. Thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
Thank you. Bye.